Remember, واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Let us open today's lecture with a reminder. In lecture courses, usually, you go back to some of the notes that you said last time in order for the students to catch up. Those who were not here before get to know and get to listen to the entire, subject matter. So here I have, as usual, I go through this. So last time, if you remember, we spoke about the development of human character, how to help human beings become strong in their character. It involves the process of refinement of character. Tahdhib al-akhlaq, tahdhib al-shakhs. Tahdhib is, that's how you process yourself in order for you to become good. And it has pillars that you need to develop within your own character. So we looked at the 4 pillars. If you remember, they are the fundamental aspects of our character building. If you want to have a good character, if you want to have a good personality, then you need to develop these 4 pillars, because they will hold your spiritual edifice. Your spiritual edifice is extremely important for you to keep in shape. You don't want to be lax about it, because the moment you become lax about it, it abandons you. You don't want to do that. Like in one of the du'as of the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Ya Allah, never abandon me. Means never leave me without guidance. That's what it means. When the parents are angry with us, say, I have nothing to do with you. Means what? I will not guide you anymore. I will not tell you anything anymore. That kind of language you want to avoid with the divine. With, also with your conscience, that if I've been given the responsibility to become better, and if I don't use that potential in me, then it will be taken away from me. This is the problem that we don't realize in the modern times. They don't say it will be taken away from you. You will suffer from a trauma or a syndrome. I don't know, so many new words that psychology uses. But it is not something that I am, ascribing to. I'm ascribing to the fundamental aspect of human faith. You could have faith in yourself. You have to start in yourself that I have the faith in me. I can be better. I can be something different than what I am. And that is essential for the movement forward. So we saw patience, ability to control anger, modesty, ability to abstain from vices and evilness. And we also saw the 3rd pillar. In my opinion, the 3rd pillar is what is very important to nurture. Your ability to show your power, your ability to show your bravery, doesn't mean that you show it at the time when it is not needed. And I think when it is not needed is, bravery is not in knocking someone down. Rather, it is self-control at the time when one is in rage. And you remember we mentioned the story of Masnavi. In Maulana Rumi, in his Masnavi, he talks about it. That, people, you should, al-bughzu lillah wal-hubbu lillah. If you're getting angry, get angry for the sake of God. If you love someone, that someone with the love of God. In other words, bring God in between so that your intention will be clarified. Because many times you and I would do something in order to show each other, to appear that way to each other. And that's against the faith, by the way. The moment you pick up the wrong side of being religious, I call it wrong side of being religious. whereby you lose the ability to use your bravery in proper place. You can ruin someone by spreading stories about them. You can say something bad about them. You can spread gossip for your friends. And ultimately, you think that they are suffering from it, but more than you are suffering from it. Your inability to overlook what we call the weaknesses in others, it causes you to become arrogant. Imam Ghazali said quite clearly that whenever you are angry with someone, or someone is disappointing you, look at the points that are of strength in that person. There is a book, very beautiful book, The Responsibilities Towards Your Brother. Mas'uliyat Babaradaran. How do you become, attuned to this idea that I have responsibility? And my major responsibility is to overlook at their weaknesses and to make big their, good aspects, so that I don't entertain unnecessary intolerance and unnecessary anger for that person. Because many times, even your own brother, your own sister, your own parents might disappoint you. What do you do then? If you look at their disappointing aspects, then you will never reconcile. Whereas what religion wants from you is, what ethics wants from you is reconciliation. In reconciliation, you are nurturing the truth. And the truth is, despite you are weak, otherwise, you are shuja inwardly. You are able to fight back. Now, let's look at the last pillar, which is the most difficult. The reason why I say most difficult, there's a lot of persecution in this world. We persecute people who look different from us. We persecute women because they are weaker. We persecute minorities because they don't agree with us. There are so many reasons for us to persecute. Persecution leads to suffering. Suffering leads to tragedy. Tragedies are easily forgotten by the victimizer, but not by the victim. The victim remembers that I was tortured. The victim remembers, this is what happened to me. Ammar Yasir could never forget what Sumayya, his mother, suffered from and how she was tortured. He could never forget. We are told that he was in Siffin, in the battle of Siffin between Ali and Muawiyah. And Ammar was reminded by someone that, you remember that time in the Jahiliyyah, what happened to your mother? He said, yes, I do. I still am boiling when I remember that my mother was tortured. Now, so there are aspects in our life whereby we need to develop something that would neutralize the anger in us, neutralize the pain in us, or make it less, visible. Justice is avoiding of extremes. Tafrit or ifrat or tafrit. We say in Farsi, in Urdu, or in Malayalam, ifrat or tafrit means you go to the one extreme on this side or other extreme on that side. No. Taking a extreme position in any matter that leads to the tilting of the balance. I was going to miss you.
Oh, slowly come.
And it happens that many times maintaining the mizan, the scale, and equity in the scale is very difficult. Especially if you are disappointed with someone. And believe me, sometimes that someone is right and you are wrong, but still you don't let the rightness to overcome your anger, to overcome your prejudice. So we live in that kind of situation. Tilting of the balance of fairness. Because I need to treat you fairly. This is what we call in ethics distributive justice. I have the means to be kind to you, but I'm not using that means. Instead, I'm always putting you down. I'm treating you unfairly. It's not fairness. Avoiding cowardice and recklessness. You are being hurt by someone. You are in the street and you are in, somebody is attacking you. And I look at it and I don't even come to you to help you. This is what we call the inability to meet the recklessness of the situation. You're coward if you don't go and help that person. Adopting gentleness, which is between losing one's temper and complete silence. Today we speak about it as civility, that you must treat each other with civility. But I want us to be very careful about civility. If it leads to hypocrisy, then that's not what it means. Civility means you treat the other person with empathy. You be more tolerant, you be more accepting, more accommodating. If you don't do it, I think you're going to hurt your spiritual well-being. Because remember, we are dealing with spiritual ethics. The ethics that will lead you ultimately to the appreciation of the power that God has endowed in you. There is ability in you to become very spiritually strong. And the moment you deny that ability in you, you're hurting yourself. This is why the Prophet said, "Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu." The one who knows himself or herself also knows his or her Lord. In what sense? In the sense that I understand my own strengths and my own weaknesses. And now I can do the improvement that I need, or I can help someone to improve if I can be doing that. So that's the kind of thing that losing one's temper and complete silence, but to remain silent, according to Immanuel Kant, when you're supposed to speak, is unfair. Somebody is being ill-treated. They mention in front of you a name and they say, "Oh, he was a very bad person." If you keep silent, knowing very well that no, that person is not bad, then you are a coward. In other words, ethics is trying to teach you how to stand for the truth. Truth and justice are together. You will never be able to gain justice if you don't know where the truth lies. What if the truth gets mixed up? Then you also lose the sense of fairness. So these are the four pillars. Any questions about them? The 4 pillars? They're clear to you? Okay, let's move on now. So the Quran is talking about good character, and the Quran is giving premium to good character. And you remember we mentioned the term Salih in our first lecture. Salih is the one who is aware of the rights of others on him or her and is carrying out their responsibilities towards others. The moment you balance the responsibilities with what you expect, then that's what we call the true scale for human rights. In the human rights document, international document that I've studied very carefully, they speak about the rights of the human beings, individual rights, but they never speak about responsibilities. Whereas the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ. La and ala. 2 pronouns. This la and ala. So when you say lak, means that you're right. If you say lak, lakum, it's your right. But if you say alaykum, it's your responsibility. So look at the way Quran is introducing the idea of women's responsibility versus women's rights. Modern language is a combative language. It doesn't care for the responsibilities. What they are worried about is that in the name of responsibility, we might not give them their rights. What the Quran says, that look, your responsibilities are commensurate with your rights. If you have a right as a parent to be respected, then you also have a greater responsibility towards your children. If I'm saying I'm your brother, then I have alay. On me there is a responsibility, and lak there is a right. So you should expect that. In other words, what the Quran did that, it created a balance between these two. This balance is commensurate. Commensurate. You don't put the burden when there is no ability to do it. You can't ask a small child to carry a chair which is so heavy. This is what God says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. I don't put any burden on anyone. God does not put any burden unless there is already a potential. So you are given the capacity before the burden is put on you. So that's how we talk about bulugh. We say baligh. A boy of 15 years old is baligh. That means he has all the total responsibility of doing everything. Girl of 9 years. Women are more smarter than men. That's what the Quran is trying to say. That they understand their responsibilities much earlier than the boy does. Have you seen in your family? In my family I've seen. I have 4 sisters and 3 brothers, big family. And I always found my sisters were far more responsible than we the boys were. We wanted to go play, we never cared. So, in other words, in the Quran is, and the Sharia is saying that 9 years of the girl and 15 years of a boy, the maturity, that intellectual maturity in a girl is much faster. She takes the responsibilities much more earlier than the boy does. And therefore, there is a kind of a very interesting understanding in the Sharia. When exactly does a girl become mature? And they talk about 9 to 13. How about the boy? From 13 to 16, 17. Sometimes up to 17, you don't see a boy taking responsibilities of any kind. They're free goers, That's the difference between a man and a woman. A woman is dedicated, totally dedicated to the mission, to the goal for which she has been created. Many times we find men lacking that kind of dedication. Where does it come from? Comes from la and Allah have to be commensurate. If God has given me the strength, He will also put the burden on me accordingly. He will never put more burden than the strength I have. So that's first thing to remember. خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأَمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Adopt forgiveness. You remember we mentioned in the first lecture. Adopt forgiveness. That's your part. And tell each other, وَأَمُرْ. Tell each other, بِالْعُرْفِ. Kindly. Convention requires that you treat others with respect. Don't shout at them. Even your children, don't do that, all right? And then, a'rid, move away from those who are ignorant, because you will not win with them. See how the Quran is treating the whole question? It's such a good psychology, in my opinion, that you do that. You see, you adopt forgiveness. And the more you are able to forgive, the more psychologically you are stronger. Remember this all the time. And when you are following the conventions and you tell others with the conventions that urf is a convention, is a custom, then you're doing the good thing. You're not using the harsh language, you're using the soft language. And go away from those who are jahilin. You will not win with them. You can't convince them. They have no ability. Jahilin, their light of guidance has been taken away from them. Don't you read in Ayat al-Kursi? That's what Ayat al-Kursi says. They have been pushed away from the light. يُخْرِجُونَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. And those who are doing good things, they have been taken out of the darkness and pushed towards the light. So that's the balance that God has created. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ. God commands you to do the right thing. Well, what is the meaning of ihsan? Does anyone know what is ihsan?
Favor.
Favor, yes, I like that translation, but that's not what the Arabic says.
To do something more better.
Ihsan?
Kindness?
No. Ihsan means to recognize your worth. When I see, yes, recognizing somebody's worth and treating them accordingly. Ihsan. Hal jaza'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan in Surah Al-Rahman, right? Is there any better way for you to treat someone who has also treated you by taking into consideration what you are worth as a person, as a human being?
Your worth or somebody else's worth? Your worth, your own worth or somebody else's worth?
It is something that you develop, and you develop in you the ability to treat other with the respect that is needed. So I treat my mother kindly.
That's fine. But if you hurt me and I do ihsan to you and don't hurt you,
It's good. It's better.
does it mean that your worth is good?
No.
So,
No, you are able to forgive. Then you are following the first ayah.
exactly.
إن الله يأمركم بالإحسان, يأمركم بالعدل والإحسان. God is commanding you to do justice and to do, what is right for you to do. You respect a woman because she is worthy of that respect. This is ihsan. In other words, all these things are part of the tradition. The Prophet himself said, I have been sent to perfect your virtues. Because you will be looking at me and you will say, yes, these are the virtues I need to follow. Siyatul akhlaq kimya al-arzaq. I mentioned that, that when you follow ethically in your earnings, God increases your earnings. If you cheat for anything, then you are losing the barakat. In other words, look at the way Islam is trying to inculcate in us a sense of right and wrong from the very beginning. This is the point I want to emphasize tonight. How do we know what is right from what is wrong? There are two major theories among Muslims. Some scholars are saying, I'm talking about the scholars. They all use the Quran, by the way. But what they are telling us is that if God doesn't tell you what is right from what is wrong, then you don't know it. What does that require? It requires me to have faith in God, who is now telling me what is right from what is wrong. So the amr bil ma'ruf, is something that God gives you as part of His guidance to you. But there's another school of thought among Muslims who say, no, the moment you are born with the sense of right and wrong. Wow, that's a big claim. How can a baby know? How can a child know what is right from what is wrong? But it's adamantly spoken about. And Mufassirin have written that when you find a baby who's born, and the baby in your house is, either smiling sometimes, making faces sometimes, you wonder what's happening. The Prophet used to say that the angels are in communication with the child. But the child is not able to tell you. It doesn't know the language, doesn't have cognitive power. It has the ability to know that somebody is talking to, and it gets very much excited. Sometimes you find them strangely making faces. These are small babies. They're also praying for their parents. Something that you and I don't even believe. To tell in the hospital, they'll laugh at you. The baby praying for you? Yes, of course. They can pray for you, they are praying for you. It's very interesting that until they reach the age of maturity, whatever good they do, the parents earn the thawab. They earn the reward because their children are praying before even it was wajib on them. In other words, there is a kind of give and take in the nature. And that give and take is not without reason that some of the Orientalists said the language of the Quran is the language of the market. You buy this, you sell this, you get this profit, you get that profit. And that's what the Quran says. The Quran is very realistic. Morally speaking, the Quran believes in moral realism. It teaches you the way you should be learning about it. It doesn't want you to remain in your imagination. It wants you to concretely envisage, concretely see what you are saying. And I think that ability is very important to keep in mind. That I mentioned at-tuqa, one of the major. If somebody asks you, what is the Quran teaching? What would you say? I want in one sentence for you to tell me that my book, the book in which I believe, tells me this. Christians say, by the way, when you ask them, what does Christ teach you? What does the New Testament teach you? And they say, love thy neighbor as you love thyself. Means love your neighbor as you love yourself. There is self there. Do you love yourself? Then you should also love your neighbor. Yes.
I think it's very strong that I see that the Quran starts with Surah Fatiha, and when you want guidance, you will get guidance. Like Surah Fatiha is a dua. Similarly, when we say our prayers, we say Surah Fatiha. So it's a book of guidance because we asked for it, and people who ask for it, they will get it.
No. Surah Al-Fatiha has a different philosophy. You're right, though.
I'm talking about the Quran, the way
Yeah.
it starts with a prayer.
It's true, though, by the way.
It starts with your
Right.
will to seek guidance.
You are right. Actually, the Prophet was asked, what is the essence of the Quran? It says Al-Fatiha. It's true. Fatiha teaches you all the necessary doctrines that you need to learn. Allah is worthy of blessings, He's worthy of praise, and He is the one you ask your help, help from Him. He is the one you worship. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. All these things are there. But I want to give you something very interesting. I'm not talking about doctrines. Al-Fatiha has doctrines. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. They're all doctrines. One God, guidance, the Day of Judgment, and who you should be praying, who you should not be praying. Yes?
I guess how to live with other people would be, or how to live and navigate through society would be probably the meat of...
Okay, I'm going to give you one of the very important hadiths. I hope you will remember for the rest of your life. The Prophet ﷺ was going on one of the battles. Customarily, he was the last one to leave Medina. He would make sure that Medina is well protected. Because women did not go for the battle. Children did not go. Old people did not go to the battle. So he was the last one to come there and make sure that everything is protected. In one of those battles, I saw the riwayah, I saw the Hadees, but I don't know which battle was it. That battle was the one in which an Arab comes and asks the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, akhbirni an ad-din kulli. O Prophet of God, tell me completely about religion. Can you imagine? Akhbirni an kulli. An dini kulli. Tell me about religion, everything. He was holding the reins of the Prophet's horse and saying, I won't let you go until you give me the answer. Because he said, Akhbirni an dini kulli. Tell me about the religion completely. And the Prophet looked at him And he said, الطاعة للخالق والشفقة على المخلوق. Obedience to God and love for all the creation of God. Didn't say طاعة للخالق وشفقة للمسلم or شفقة للمؤمن. What you said. شفقة للمخلوق. Protection of the environment is also your responsibility. Not to spoil trees is your responsibility. How to look after your children is your responsibility. Everything that you do, shafaqa. Shafaqa means in Urdu they say mehrabani. Farsi, Urdu they say mehrabani kardan. You do be kind. In other words, you don't make any distinction between between people when you are showing your kindness. This is, by the way, the heart of human rights in the Quran. I don't mean to say that the Quranic language on human rights is like a modern language. Modern language is individualistic. What the Quran is saying that you are meant to work together. So I'm introducing a new term for you. Islamic ethics is communitarian ethics. You are a member of a family. You are a member of a community. Your perfection is dependent upon your membership in the community. How you are behaving in the community, what kind of contributions you are making for the community, The ethics, secular ethics, are individualistic. I am concerned about myself. I should defend my rights, and if anybody threatens me, I should respond in kind. What the Quran is saying is what the Prophet mentioned quite clearly. الطاعة للخالق وشفقة المخلوق. Yes, you will obey God. And that's between you and God. But as a member of the human society, you need to love each other. You need to care for each other. You can't otherwise become perfected. See, the totality of religion is summed up in this one hadith, don't you think? It's one of the hadiths that we need to keep everywhere in our mind. At-ta'atu lil-khaliq, obedience to God. And obedience to God, that's why they say, the Prophet used to say, look, if you don't pray, it is between you and God. I'm not responsible for you not praying. I can't take the responsibility for you not doing your salat or sawm or anything. Ibadat, I can't be responsible. This is between you and Allah subhanahu. But I am responsible when you are doing the muamalat. When you're treating each other. If you treat each other unfairly, then I'll come in between you to teach you what is fairness. But I won't interfere with you when you say, therefore this is very interesting. A man comes, there were so many stories like this in the Hadees, by the way. He comes and says, Ya Rasulullah, I want to become a Muslim. Tell me one thing to do. He was quite modern in that sense, So give me only one thing that I can do. The Prophet is looking at him in his eye, and the Prophet ﷺ had the ability to read the eyes of the people. He never disclosed it, but he knew. He said, okay, can you promise me one thing? Speak the truth at all times. And what I am understanding from this hadith is that the entire fundamental foundation of religion is truthfulness. If you don't know how to say the truth, you are out. Yes.
Thank you for sharing the hadith. I promise to remember it forever.
Yes.
You used the word shafaqa?
Shafaqa, yeah.
Does it mean love or kindness?
Kindness.
Okay.
Shafaqa is kindness. But kindness is very broad term. Kindness through loving, kindness through giving, kindness through being generous. Kindness is very broad term. It covers different forms of manifestations. When you say a person is kind, not only he loves you, not only he is considerate of you, he also helps you, he takes care of you. So many things are connected with the kindness. Shafaqa. It didn't say hubbullah. No. It used shafaqa. Because kindness is much broader and it has to manifest itself in the way I treat you. If I don't know how to treat you, I'm not even a Muslim in that sense, you know. If I don't know how to respect you, I'm not even a Muslim. Come on. In other words, it really is setting the goals. Now, where does this knowledge come from? Me knowing this. So let's say I lived in the jungles of Africa. You know that I come from Tanzania. And there are, you know, if you go to Congo, there are pygmies, there are people who have not seen the modern civilization. According to the Western terminology, they are known as primitive. But they are not primitive. They have their own culture, they have their own values, and they are not crazy, you know, because primitive has a very negative connotation. And that's not what, you know, we say. Now, why do they have, what kind of things they have? One thing that we found, anthropologists went around and they did ethnographical studies in Africa, in Indonesia, in Samoa, you know, all these places where the anthropologists wanted to find the original human being. One of the things that modern West has tried to do is try to get grips on how people lived in the old days. What did they do? What kind of culture they had? That study was anthropological study, but it had its own problems. Because anthropological studies were carried out by those who were in power. If I'm in power and I'm studying you, I'm going to impose my values on you. And then we'll say, oh, they are not this, because I believe in this. You see what happens? And that kind of judgment is not allowed. We need to develop what we call a sense of right and wrong. Therefore, the Quran insists, and this is part of my book, by the way, that the Quran insists that there is no human being who has not been infused with moral knowledge. There is no human being who has not been given in his or her nature, a moral understanding of right and wrong. In other words, on the day of judgment, you and I cannot say, Ya Allah, I don't know what you're talking about. I have to be kind. I don't know where the kindness will come. And Allah will say, I have implanted it in your soul, in your spirit. That's how it is, yes.
This is interesting. Of course, I agree with you, 100%. When the child is born, we know that. But over time, you see some people who develop this God consciousness, as we spoke.
Yes. You know,
we discussed. So this God consciousness comes with the reading of the Quran and learning the Quran.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like obedience, but you know, before that obedience, you have to know God.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
So there are people who would not want to, I see Muslims trying to know God as they want to know God.
yes.
God is love.
Right.
There's 99 names and he has different qualities. How do you convince those people who God is? How you could move forward with, with
I like your question, but if I were to spend the time in responding to that, then I will miss my point. I'm more.
Okay, I will talk to you later.
Yes. And you can write me email, by the way.
Okay,
yes.
I would like
Yeah. I'm more interested in generating in you the confidence. I want you to be confident. I want you to feel strong, like Allama Iqbal used to say in his philosophy of Khudi, in his philosophy of the self, the secrets of the self, Asrar Khudi. And he explained to us something very beautiful. Again, Iqbal is a poet who is a philosopher. And he wanted to tell us that, look, you can never make an excuse that I didn't know, because it is given in you that you should know. The rudiments are given to you. You develop the rudiments and become strong. Understand the cognitive values. Develop volition, willpower in you to do it. This is what the Quran is saying. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Surah Shams, you remember? And God says, I created human beings. نَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. سَوَّيْتُ, I made it. I made a human being. And then what did I do? And he talks about nafs. And then he says, I inspired them with the knowledge of right and wrong. Those who followed the right, they were saved. Those who followed the bad, they were condemned. The choice is human being. You remember I told you last week that religion cannot be enforced. It must be negotiated freely.
It will be the only thing that you have to do tomorrow is consultation.
Religion needs to be followed willingly. If it is not willingly followed, if it is followed out of fear, then that religion becomes what we call religion of appearances. You are doing something to get the approval of others. So it's very important to keep in mind where I'm coming from. Let me complete my explanation here that the two schools are to be found in all Muslim community. It's not Shia Sunni, it is Sunni. I'm talking about the Sunni community. That there is, in the Sunni community, there are two trends. Those who are fuqaha, those who are jurists, they believe that God has created us with a sense of obedience. So you and I are naturally obeying God. No, they don't say naturally. They say through the prophet, we learn how to follow the religion. So the wahy side of it, the revelation side of it, is given to the human beings by God through the prophet, so that human beings would become obedient to God. Clear? So the main purpose of religion is, or ethics is, to teach you how to obey God. They use God. Ta'at Allah. Obedience to God. The other group says, the main reason that God created us is to know Him. How do we know Him? Because He's not corporal, He's not Jesus Christ, the way Christians are saying, He is God. I don't know, Hindus say Shiva is God. I don't know, Mitra is God. The different religions of the world have different ways. The Buddhists speak about Buddha and all these things. But as far as Abrahamic religions go, always there is a question that I love God. How do I know that God loves me? I love God. How do I know that that love is being reciprocated by God? He loves me the way I love Him.
You exist.
You
exist.
How?
You exist.
You exist. Oh, beyond that. You have no choice, because we came on this earth without any choice. Nobody asked us. You want to go in this world? Nobody asked you, you want this parent or you want that parent? You want that mother or this father? We were just, as as Umar Khayyam would say, Sachedina and dakhtan. They made you and they threw you in the world without asking you, do you want to go in this world or not? That means you don't have the freedom to come in the world. In other words, you and I might be very smart and arrogant and everything, and yet we do not control one thing: the time we are born and the time we will go. There's a big debate in the hospitals now. Do you have a right to die? Can you write in advance directives that please let me die? The hospital wants to keep you, alive, because they are afraid of the, lawsuit against them. Maybe, the family will say, you killed our father. There are so many things going on in the world today. One thing is sure, that you don't go at the time you decide. Just as you didn't decide the time you came in this world. All your relationship was decided by God. Therefore, then the question arises, would that God leave you without any guidance at all? No. Even if I did not believe in that God, even if I did not believe in that religion, I still have one thing in me, and that's my nature, fitra. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا. You put your direction, you put your search towards a religion that teaches you to be upright, Hanifa, to be true, to be strong, to be considerate, all these things, all these virtues that are part of that. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. God in His own nature has created us. In the creation story of Nabi Adam, what does God say in the Quran? وَنَفَخْتُ مِنْ رُوحِي. I breathe my own spirit in Adam. Now, do the sajda to him. In other words, God says, I created him with myself. He is so important, you know. The angels were arguing, you know, they're going to shed a lot of reciprocated dema, Ya Allah, we are worshiping, nusabbihu lak. We worship you, we do all these things. Why would you send this human being who is going to shed blood on this earth? And Allah says, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. What I know, you don't know. What did God know that the angels did not know? Angels don't have the temptation. They are not tested like you and I are tested. You and I are in the midst of temptations. We are constantly being checked upon and being tested by God. Will you do this or not? Will you do that or not? And constantly you and I are freely making the choice and taking the responsibility. That's what the ayah of the Quran says. In other words, what I'm driving at tonight is, we need to find how to process our ethics. How do we process our character? What is it that you and I need to know? I'm here in all honesty, I'm here because I regard you part of me and me as part of you. We are all connected, both as human beings and the fellows who are, who care for these things. Otherwise you wouldn't come. Why would you come? Why can't you sit at home, watch a television program or something that you very much like? But you come here and you say, okay, we are going there. Maybe we'll learn something. And I get what we call the satisfaction that I was able to tease your mind. I was able to provoke you. My provocation is here. How do we apply the 4 pillars in action? You see what I'm asking you something that, look, when I speak about justice, I'm not speaking about abstraction. I'm speaking about things that are happening on the earth, and you and I need to be aware that we can't remain indifferent. Do you see what I'm driving at? You can't remain indifferent. You can't always talk like hubb, like love of, in this culture, Mom, I love you. Okay, and all the time everybody is loving, In the old days we didn't hear the love, but now with these new phones, everybody is walking around and fighting and loving and everything in front of everyone. There is no privacy at all. Everything is public. But there's a lot of pretension in the culture. They talk about love, but they don't mean it. I love you, Dad. But when I tell you to pray, you don't pray. When I tell you to come and sit with me and talk, you don't. You don't have time for me, and still I love you. How can you be loving me? Maybe you love my money. Maybe you love I don't know what you love. I really don't know. I mean to say, in the world today, people have become quite materialistic and quite greedy. Human beings are very greedy. In this part of the world, we are taught to be greedy. Look at the way you go shopping, how you end up shopping so much, collecting so much goods in your home. When you are not, when you don't even need them. You went for one t-shirt, instead you bought, 3 t-shirts and 3 pens. And in other words, this consumerist culture is able to buy you off. You had a question.
Yeah, I was going to say that the concept of love nowadays, I think it's a lot about what you provide for me.
Yes.
As opposed to what you were talking about, which is kind of like a pan love for all existence, regardless of what you provide for me or what you don't provide for me, regardless of that.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this is a very important point. Thank you for raising it, because it says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. O Prophet, they claim to love you. Tell them, if you love God, if you love me, follow my footsteps. Follow my footsteps. Don't claim that, Muhammadun Rasulullah, we love him, this qawwali, and I don't know. There's so much going on. There's big market for these things.
So why do you have society here? And all our kids are consumed in the society, and I understand that very well. And what are the steps which parents can take in order to move to the real concept of love?
Yes.
And I try my best to do that. But when you see the culture around, your
Absolutely.
child is more vulnerable and more accepting.
That's right.
Because that child has to really adopt the way.
That's right. Exactly.
This is human psychology, that you have to be accepted.
This is jihad bin nafs, by the way. What I'm talking about is your struggle with your own ego.
How can we do that?
Well, I'll show you. At least I will indicate the path to you. You might be able to find it. You might be able to, change it a bit to fit your situation. I don't mean to say the way I'm doing things is the only way. I'm saying that there are so many people in this hall today, and there are as many paths as that. This is what Hafiz would say. That, mazhab or millat, there is no one mazhab, no one millat. There are as many human beings there are, mazhab and millat. In other words, we need to find a way that commonly, helps us to be together. What is it that brings us together tonight, or in our lives, with our children, with everything and anything? I think I'm using only one. Let us examine al-iffa, modesty. This is a big issue in this culture. Modesty. What do you mean by modesty? Hijab. Oh, hijab. No. That's not modesty. You have different opinions. I have heard professors of Islamic studies, women, saying there is not a single ayah about hijab in the Quran. That's false. There are ayahs in the Quran. In other words, okay, you don't want to follow, don't follow. But why are you bringing the Quran in between? Why are you saying that this is what the Prophet said? Well, you were not even there in 7th century. My professor, Dr. Shariati, used to say, one of the most difficult things for the modern people is to go back in the history and imagine that period. Because you and I are part of the modern world. We can't even know how to imagine that world of 7th century Arabia. And I think that's what we need to do. Two prerequisites are mentioned in our sources. The first one, continued practicing and negotiation and volition, willpower. 2 things are needed. If you want to bring about changes in the way you do things, in the way you think, I really need to catch up, I need to do something, then the first thing you want to do is that you want to bring about a very important change in you. And that's continued practice. How many times you prayed in some, I'm not getting anything from this prayer in it, But what Allah says is, يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ حَتَّى يَعْتِقَ الْيَقِينِ. Worship God until you gain certainty. But don't abandon salat. If you abandon the salat, you will never be able to inculcate what Iffa is all about. That modesty is inside. We always talk about the hijab of the women. We hardly talk about the hijab of the men. In the Quran, first hijab is for men. Men should learn how to live properly, where to look, and not look everywhere. And then the women are told, okay, now that this man might not change, might have disease in their heart, you change. You do this. In other words, the Quran is providing a kind of a alternate solution. Okay, you follow it, and if you can't follow it, then let them do it. In other words, there is no way out, but you need to develop the modesty that we are speaking about. Volition is a willpower. The Quran introduces the idea of abstinence, isti'faf, which the modern life doesn't know. There's no abstinence. In the school that you go, I don't know how many of you know of you read the book by James Kilpatrick, Why Johnny Can't Tell Right from Wrong. Have you seen this book? You should read it. But what he means is that why children in the high school today in North America are not able to learn, morality. Why can't they know what is right, the difference, what is the difference between right and wrong?
Too many perspectives.
Too
many perspectives.
No. I think James Kilpatrick is himself a Catholic. And he asked this very important question, and I read the book so captivating, that book. Because what he says is that if you don't give good examples to your children will never know the right from the wrong. It's very difficult for them to know. If mom picks up the phone and says, but my husband is not here, and he's there, and the child looks, Papa is here, or Dad is here, So they are learning to tell lies, obvious lies. How many more times do we teach wrong things to our children? How many more times? And when it comes final to the day of reckoning, and where we have to give the hisab, then we realize that now it's too late. We can't change our children anymore because we let them go the way, and we behave that way. And I go in many societies, by the way, around the world, and I find the problem that the family are complaining about Islam, about, this religion of the mullahs. The problem is with them. The problem is not with the people who are, teaching religion. It is the practicing. We don't practice what we learn. We don't try to do things the way we should be doing, A month of Ramadan comes, okay, we become good people all of a sudden, we invite people, we eat together, But otherwise, nutrition, feeding in Islam is spiritual. You have to do it all the time. Even when the woman or the man cooks I'm talking about men also cooking, because although I don't know how to cook, but sometimes I do help, And, when we cook, it is when we are feeding our children with what we prepare, that nourishment is both bodily and spiritual. In other words, there is a value. Imagine Islam as a religion. In the marriage, your love between the spouses, your relationship, even sexual relationship, is viewed with spiritual eyes. That no, this is spiritually, you are praising God by doing the proper way it should be done, rather than, being after anything and everything. In other words, it is something that what is taught to me is that should we apply the ethical principles, the first thing you and I will have to apply is, am I honest with myself? That's the first thing. If means I am afif, istifaf, ta'affuf, I am trying to save myself from shameful things, I remember I go to the gym every day almost, and then we are in the locker room, everybody is changing and everybody is walking naked or something. It's a very strange world, And because I have done exercises in Iraq and Iran, people are respectful, you don't have to be to show off, And all of these things, they bother me inside, So I have a locker, men's locker. I pay money for it so that because I pray. When the prayer time comes, I leave my exercise, pray, and then go do my exercise again. In other words, I try to teach myself discipline. But who is bothering me now? Children. Whatever combination, lock we put, they know it. They open it, they come in, they shout, they throw things. Imagine there is no peace anywhere. How do you do it? How do you come to the situation? This is the realistic world with which Islam is dealing. The Prophet knew these problems. You won't believe. Robert Bellah, the sociologist of religion, he wrote an article about the Prophet. The Prophet, he said, Prophet of Islam was ahead of the modern times. Wow! Is he claiming something? No, he goes through very careful analysis. It's a worth reading article. I can send it to Omar and he can send it to you if you want. But that article is an eye-opener because he's a sociologist. He's a top sociologist of religion. Harvard, I don't know where and where. And he has written this article about modernization in Islam. And he talks about it that, look, Islam was far ahead of its time. Christianity had to strike accommodation with secularism. But Islam knew from the very beginning that there will be the rights of God and there will be the rights of human beings. We'll have to work that inside our, system. So the Quran introduces the idea of abstinence. You can't teach abstinence today to our young people. It's very difficult to do that. Refraining, in particular, from temptation to engage in shameful deeds. So what are the challenges that await us? Is it?
No, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. What do you mean abstinence? Is that only sexual or is that from in general?
In general, abstinence from overeating, abstinence from over-enjoying, abstinence. It's a kind of, zuhud. Zuhud means I have it, but I will not be extravagant about it. I know I can eat halwa every night, but it's not good for me. So I'll eat only once in a week or something, In other words, like me, I love sweets, and I have to remind myself that if you don't control yourself, you will die. What do you want to do? Eat or die? So the answer comes, I want to live, So in other words, we are actually living the real life every day. That is every day. I refuse to embrace women that are not related to me. So my students, they say, Professor, one day I will embrace you. You know how they are. So, you're standing in your office, all of a sudden somebody knocks the door and then gets on you. I said, hey, wait. This is abstinence. This is zuhud. You could easily, fall into the silly games that people play around, There's so much going on. God forbid. God forbid. May Allah protect our daughters, our sisters, all of them, Otherwise, they are not easy times. Offices. My God, you work in the office. It's dangerous. I remember we had, one professor was hired who was gay. And now if you say you are against gay, then you are singled out as conservative, So the department, it was a big department, they say, we have this new colleague of ours. He would like to invite you for lunch. So you go for lunch, and you say, now you wonder, why did he invite me for lunch? People don't invite for lunch here, usually must be something. And then he is asking, what do you think about gay culture, homosexuality? I said, well, are you asking me a religious question or asking me a personal question? There might be personal answer could be very different. As far as my tradition goes, my religion goes, I cannot support it. It has its own boundaries drawn.
What is your personal viewpoint?
Oh, you are spotting me. I will not be spotted very easily because I'm being recorded. Yes, I know it quite well. But, I have, honestly, I have no opinion. I don't like it, but I have no opinion. Because in this culture, everything goes. The moment you say, I don't like it, then you are already labeled conservative. I don't know, backward. I also have so many things. Yes?
You're not being truthful. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because, what's your opinion is, you're not expressing it on the other.
Yeah, you don't, because
I
you're.
also believe that I think our societies have gone bad for the reason because I think we have become too careful.
Too timid.
Too timid.
Yes, not careful.
And we do not.
We are afraid of being, outcast.
We are afraid. So this is not what Islam wants from us.
Yeah, but you see, you are living in a society, in a culture which does not have tolerance or understanding of your values, first of all. Because our values, Islamic values, are no different from the Christian religious values or from Jewish religious values. And yet, those religions have compromised their stance. They say, okay, if it is your living style, I don't care, as long as you don't bring here. So you don't become the pastor, you don't become the priest of the church. No, they're also accommodating that one. In other words, Pope, is used to justify so many things that they were not justified in the religion in the beginning. So you have lots of problems going on. And I don't think, I'm teaching for the last 45 years. I have not expressed my opinions openly, let me tell you this, because as a minority you need to be careful. As a Muslim, you are blacklisted. I'm blacklisted. If you would you want to see me? Go to the Middle East, Daniel Pipes, and he has labeled me as a fundamentalist, as an extremist. We are not, but that's what they do. In other words, you are living in a world in which you don't control the discourse. The discourse is controlled by others. What do you do then? Either you let yourself be dragged into the problems, or you stand firm, you hear from here, you take out from here. Say, okay, all right, this doesn't agree with me. I hear you, but I'm not giving my opinion to you. It's not being liar. I think it's recognizing the limits of my freedom. How much freedom do I have? How much is being tolerated from me?
Just to go back to the hadith of the Prophet encouraging us to be kind, can we be kind to those with whom we don't agree?
Yeah.
So
I have no problem.
We need to ask. I think the more practical question for me is how someone chooses to behave is their responsibility and their duty to God or lack thereof. I'm still responsible to be kind.
Sure. I don't mean to instill in you intolerance and hurling insults at the people that we don't agree with. There are so many. Imagine today, I'm being contacted by very close friends of mine that their daughter is lesbian, their son is homosexual. And these people, I know, they were always religious. They were always, respectful. And, the question arises, the mother tells me that I'm not speaking with my daughter. And she's a doctor. She is a doctor, the daughter is a doctor. So I'm not speaking. I said, that's not right. You have to speak to her. And if you abandon her at this time, then she will have nobody else to talk to. At least she loves you and she cares for you. That's why she was honest with you. So I'm in my advising, my counseling that I do marriage counseling, I do parent-children counseling. All this counseling that I do, I think I am, today at my age, I cannot be radical. And I cannot afford to. I was never like that. I was never radical. I was intolerant when I was growing up, 16, 17, 18 years old. I was fighting with my brothers who did not pray, let's say, oh, you're not praying, and, trying to be Muslim, more Muslim than they were, So in other words, I have reached a point from the age of 40, 43, 44 that I don't engage, in this kinds of conversation. In fact, I prefer to. I still remember one day, my son played a game with both of me and my wife, and he wear those, wore these alamat, I don't know what you call them, the earrings of the gay people or whatever it was. And he came home and said, "Mom, I'm a gay." So here I was being tested for the first time directly. I said, "Muhammad, what are you talking about?" "Yes, I am." And we had a long conversation. At the end of the conversation, we found out that he was simply playing a game with us to find out how well we take this news about their own child. And I think it was a lesson for me that what do you do if your own brother, your own son, your own daughter comes forward and says these things? Should you kick them out, or what should you do? And I don't think we can do that, because abstinence would teach us, would teach us to be respectful of the other person. We can't be disrespectful. And I think it's a big mistake. I think you're right. I'm not propounding, intolerance. But it's very hard for us, for anybody who believes in certain things, to come out in open to say, this is what I believe in. For example, I don't like extremism of the jihadist people. I don't like it. But imagine if you were to speak like that, even to the Muslim audience, they will be angry with you. Don't you think? Because they want to hear you talking about the power of jihad and this and that. And I don't believe in that. I'm peaceful. I want to believe in peace. I will not condone wars. Whether wars, and I am anti-nuke. I don't condone, the nuclear armaments. And I'm against it. Openly, I have written articles about it, that's greater danger to human beings are the nuclear weapons, especially if they come.
We're all jihadis. I mean, in this country, we're trying to pray at proper times.
Yeah, but we are jihadis. We don't use that.
We are trying up to our maximum effort.
That's right, yeah.
Right?
But we can't, in this culture, I got a case in the court where the car plate had the name Jihad on it. And I was dragged to the court because the judge said that this is wrong. You can't have a car. I said, Jihad is a common name in the Muslim cultures. It's like saying, my son's name is Osama. We are afraid even to name them Osama. It's that kind of intolerance of the intolerance. Because secular culture claims to be tolerant, but it's not. It has its own brand of intolerance. In ethics, you and I need to keep one thing in common. I asked you the question, what is the central message of the Quran? You might say Fatiha, you might say Tawheed, you might say, I will say only one thing.
I mean, that's obedience.
Only one thing is the central theme of the Quran. The entire Quran rotates around it. Ethics. Amal al-khair. Even on the day of judgment, God will say, okay, you didn't believe in me, fine. Why were you misbehaving with fellow humans? That will be asked. In other words, ethics is in the center of the Islamic worldview. And today we don't care much about ethics. In the Muslim world, I go where I speak about ethics. It's a new subject. It should be actually very, very native subject. Akhlaq. So I teach, for example, biomedical ethics. So tell me, I teach them in Iran, in Iraq, and also Jordan. And they said, these doctors, none of them are morally good people. They're so bad. So that's why we are teaching biomedical ethics. So have you been able to convert them? I said, no, because they're making a lot of money. You give them a lot of money. That's why. In other words, there is a problem that we see every sector of the society is, controlling us. But I think there is honoring an approach that preserves human dignity and ability to hold one's ground based on truth and justice. Very difficult. May God never test us. If we will fail. Even I would fail. All the claims that I might be making, I will fail. Decisiveness should not lead to arrogance. This is what I want us to learn. Or animosity or doing wrong to others. One of my students came to my office and said, "Professor, I take drugs." I said, "So, what do you want me to do?" "Your birthday is 12th of May and mine is 12th of May. Why don't you take it?" He was a young, I think maybe 18, 19 years old, maybe first year. So he was my student in Sufism when I was teaching there. He said, "You should also take drugs." I said, "No, that doesn't mean if I'm born on the same date that you are, that I should be doing exactly what you do." "No, Professor, it's very good. It will enlighten you here." He's holding it. After 3 weeks, I got a letter from the prison. He was in the prison. In other words, what do you do? How do you handle? I teach in month of Ramadan, for example. In University of Virginia, I was teaching, religion courses, Islamic courses in the month of Ramadan, Now men are better covered than women are in the summer months. And you are sitting there, you are supposed to teach them with adab, with, clarity of mind and everything. And every now and then there is, you are being tempted and tested. I'm a human being. I'm not a saint. And I can be tested. It can happen to anybody. In other words, imagine the situation we are put into as teachers, as leaders. If we don't follow those paths, who will follow those paths?
You brought a very interesting point up, because the cognitive dissonance that we encounter sometimes.
A little louder, I'm happy to hear. Yes.
I said you brought a very interesting point up in terms of the student who came up to you and told you about the drugs. Sometimes there's a comparative between how younger people who finish work go out with their colleagues to happy hour. And there's a cognitive dissonance.
That's right.
There's a cognitive dissonance between what is their cognitive motive to address the situation.
That's right.
The word that you used earlier, which was very, very unique, atuka, this moral and spiritual awareness.
That's right.
Is so imperative for us to have.
It is.
Moral and spiritual awareness. Even myself, when I was younger, old man now.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I would be encountered with not only that, but also my colleagues and friends, whether they dated Muslim men and women, whether they dated non-Muslim men and women.
Oh yeah.
And how they address this with their cognitive.
Oh yes. No, we have groups now whom we advise, whom we are, advising. These are women, gay women, lesbian men, Muslim men. There's a support group. So they ask us, "Would you help us?" I said, "Okay." You can't say, "No, I will not help you. I will not make you understand things." You have to go and help them. Now, sometimes out of 10, 15 people, maybe one will be guided. And for me, it's such a gift if one person is guided. I don't care how many more, I don't see at the numbers. I see at the quality of the individual. And I think that what we are learning is decisiveness. Musammam budan. You are with tasmim, with, ability to decide. And should not lead to arrogance. Sometimes we become self-righteous. Because we think, I don't do those things, and you become cocky about it. It's not good. An animosity or doing wrong to others, because it might be dangerous to do that to others. I think I have one more slide. You still have faith? You still have strength?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the last point, I think. Okay. Keeping an eye. This is very important, by the way. Muraqabat. To watch over yourself. Not let yourself be driven into some of these dreamlands, what kind of things. And I think that to keep the eye is developing considerate attitude in one's relation with others. Mura'at kardan. We say mura'at mikone. I consider your situation and then I act accordingly. Not my condition. Your condition is more important. In human relationship, we need to be considerate, mura'at, of one another. Not only that, God's name is Ar-Raqib. It suggests God's constant consideration of God's servants and creatures. God is constantly looking at us. I told you about our two friends here, the two angels. They are God's agents, but they're also our friends. You can talk to them and you will hear them. You need to develop what I call inner ear. So you don't need the hearing aid, but you need the spirit inside you to listen to them. They talk, all right? And not only that, knowing very well what they need and how to protect them from unknown hazards. In ethics, it means human consideration or protection of oneself from any danger. That's what we know as muraqabat, muraqaba, raqib, Allah raqibun. He's watching over us. He's considerate of our weaknesses. If he didn't know that we were so weak, he would have destroyed us long ago. We sin so easily. We get tempted so easily. He would have just said, okay, go, But he constantly forgives us, constantly tells us, I will hold your hand. And you see, this is very interesting that the Quran is telling us, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. If you develop spiritual and moral strength, God will become your teacher. Can you imagine? God will hold you and He will take you to the manzil, to the destiny that you are supposed to be going. I think I'll stop here and let you digest some of the thoughts. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.